Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the EyesisWatchin channel. $38 trillion in debt and counting. And that's just the US. You're looking at the debt clock right here. Look how insane this looks. Looking like the demons are in Satan's casino spinning the slot machine nonstop. And for people who can't even picture how much 38 trillion actually is, well, get this. If you spent $1 million every single day since the birth of Jesus Christ, you still wouldn't hit 38 trillion. That's how deep the hole is. 38 trillion seconds is 1.2 million years. What I'm trying to say is humanity couldn't dig that kind of pit with just bad budgeting. Okay, this isn't just one big financial oopsie daisy. This is engineered. This is a strategic collapse created by central bankers and Epstein's buddies. And they know it's unfixable. Matter of fact, they're speeding it up. Why? Because the new system is already built. The digital cage is assembled and ready to go. And they're beta testing it right now. 100% confirmation, folks. Programmable money trials in poor neighborhoods have begun. Digital ID systems being rolled out quietly, testing the cage on the people who can't fight back first. And the sad part is, most people will love it. People will walk into a cage willingly if it means no work, free food, and free healthcare. Whatever makes life a little easier. I mean, lions in the zoo have it so good, right? And don't get it twisted. This isn't just an American problem either. Canada's drowning in debt, Europe's drowning in debt as well, and Japan? Well, its national debt amounts to 263% of its GDP. We all know where this is headed, okay? The whole world is upside down financially. The global system is clinically dead. They're just keeping the corpse warm until the CBDC UBI scheme is fully polished. They can't just fix $38 trillion in debt. That would be nuts to even think it's possible. So they're transitioning. They're guiding the crash, slowly steering the plane into the mountain while telling you to sit back in your seats and relax. Look, things are about to get real dark real fast, and the beta tests prove it. Here's the proof. New York is the test lab. They're giving 160 low-income residents $12,000 in USDC, funded by Coinbase's old failed charity project. Not cash, not checks either, stablecoin only they call it. Because the new system doesn't want you touching paper, not even if it's toilet related, okay? They're probably gonna have digital toilet paper soon too. They're handing out an $8,000 lump sum and 5 $800 payments like they're feeding a machine quarters to see what lights up. And you already see the pattern here. They chose the South Bronx and East Harlem. Of course, they're testing the system on poor people first. I mean, you don't beta test a digital control grid on hedge fund managers living in Beverly Hills, okay? You test it on communities that have been struggling economically for decades. People that live in a place where survival makes compliance look like a choice. Give Directly is the company, and they just admitted they're studying how people perceive crypto versus cash. When you read into it, it's like they're running a test on lab mice. They want to know if the lump sum makes people more predictable or if the drip feed makes them more obedient. This isn't financial aid, okay? It's in the form of a digital beta test. And they didn't pick New York City because of the culture, okay? They picked it because the political class already rolled over and showed their belly. Even the new mayor, the guy marketed as the anti-cabal outsider, is ushering in the same exact digital control grid the cabal has been drooling over for a decade. Obama 2.0 with a different haircut. Nothing excites these people like a system that hands them more power while letting them pretend they're doing charity work, okay? This is their favorite magic trick. They even claim people in these neighborhoods might trust crypto more than banks, end quote, which is like saying someone trusts a wolf because the last bear bit them, okay? Both will eat you. One just promises to do it more gently. And don't let them fool you with the branding, okay? This isn't some universal basic income. It's targeted basic income, meaning they decide who gets fed and who stays hungry. A universal system becomes a population program. A targeted system becomes a pressure point, and they're perfecting the pressure points right now. People are calling this progress, but look at what's actually happening here. They're basically laying a financial shock collar on all these people. They're mapping spending habits. Of course, they're going to track everything that's being done with this stable coin. Stress responses to dependency curves. All of that is being tracked right now. They're checking the hinges on a door you won't notice until it closes. Digital IDs are rolled out at the same time. Predictive policing at the same time. Palantir watching you 24/7. And now programmable payouts being handed out, beta tested on poor neighborhoods before the real collapse hits. They don't need to force anything. They just let the old system collapse, then hand out digital relief packages with terms of service that read like a parole agreement. And most people will accept it because, when the fridge is empty and inflation turns a grocery store trip into a literal nightmare. I mean, this isn't some charity program. This isn't support either. A lot of people are accepting this stable coin like, thank God we got free money. This is the prototype for a future where your survival comes in monthly increments, monitored by demons who can literally turn you off like a light switch if they don't like you or what you're even spending the money on. This mindset isn't new. I mean, you go back hundreds of years and Rockefeller said he didn't want a nation of thinkers. He wanted a nation of workers. That was the whole point of the education system. Keep people busy, not smart. Keep them exhausted, not curious. Work was the distraction. Work was the sedative and the cage. Now jump to 2025, AI wipes out millions of jobs and suddenly people have time again. Time to think, time to question things, time to start noticing, time to notice how rigged everything is. And guess what? The system is panicking. So what do? They replace work with digital sedation. Virtual reality headsets locked onto your head, for the dopamine loops, virtual villages, virtual friends, and even sex dolls incoming. Vaccines to give you brain damage, but they're going to call them wellness injections, the Brave New World package. The Soma isn't a pill anymore. It will be a vaccine every month. That's why they condition people with the idea of boosters. The only thing getting boosted is the cancer you'll get. Vaccines that cause just enough brain damage so you're kept calm enough to think your new cage is a luxury apartment. And that's how UBI is tied into all of this. Once your money is digital, they own you. Keep up to date on those boosters or your payment freezes. Try watching the latest EyesisWatchin podcast. Deposits canceled. Free thinker detected. That's the blueprint right there. So they collapse the economy, then they manufacture the crash in a way where they can safely transition into the new system while still keeping their wealth and power. Typical scumbag mindset of your average PIC. They're herding people into a programmable money cage like chickens with access to Wi-Fi. All of it is happening while digital IDs quietly roll out across every Western nation, each one wrapped in a different pretense. Predictive policing already active. Palantir knows what you'll do before you do it. And now programmable paychecks are being tested on the poorest communities to make sure the code works before they finally crush the middle class and then make this UBI mandatory, locking everyone into a digital ball and chain. The Great Reset is here, peeps. It'll come as a notification on your iPhone. A pop-up saying $800 of USDC has been deposited into your government-approved wallet. And just like that, the cage door clicks shut. You really thought the US could just magically fix $38 trillion of debt? Really? The economy is going to crash and drag the global financial market into the hole with it. The biggest transfer of wealth in human history took place, engineered by the same demons who lied about a pandemic, stuffed their pockets before the debt bubble burst, then forced medical procedures on people that slowly kill them off while they transition into the new global monetary system. Like, do you not see what's happening here? The demons did something demonic. Shocking, I know. About as surprising as Kim Kardashian discovering she has low brain activity. Yeah, definitely front page news here. This just in, Kim Kardashian is brain dead. Yeah, and water is wet. And before I even get into this article right here, does anyone else find it kind of weird they all talk about 2030 like it's some divine prophecy deadline here? Every government, every think tank, every billionaire suddenly circled 2030 on the calendar and said, yep, that's when everything changes. That date is not a coincidence, people. They're acting like people who already know exactly what's going to happen by then. Okay, peep the headline right here. AI to eliminate 99% of jobs by 2030. There's no plan B. A top AI safety dude here named Roman Yampolsky is saying that by 2030, yeah, there's that year again, AI and humanoid robots will make hiring humans pointless. Not 10% unemployment, not 20%. He says we're looking at 99%, as in only the DICs and their servants get jobs while everyone else gets their digital welfare and VR headsets. Kind of makes you wonder about the movie Ready Player One. You can tell the CIA funded that one, okay? They wanted to psyop you into believing a world like that is futuristic and cool. And guess who helped bring Ready Player One to life? Dan Farah. Dude didn't just produce the movie, he turned around and built a damn company to recreate the same metaverse that we saw in the film. They want you living in the exact nightmare world the movie warned you about. Broke, stacked in metal trailer slums, and escaping reality with a headset. It's intelligence agency funded predictive programming. And get this, the same guy who co-produced Ready Player One also directed and produced that alien documentary I played last podcast, Age of Disclosure. Yeah, VR dystopia and UFO psyops coming from the same direction. Totally random, right? Roman Yampolsky even said retraining people is pointless. It doesn't matter if you code or do accounting or whatever. AI will do it for $20 a month. That's crazy. Then he said humanoid robots are maybe 5 years behind. So first AI takes the desk jobs, then robots take the physical jobs, and that's the whole labor market gone. We're so cooked, people. I mean, people are backing him up too, like Anthropic's CEO, saying half of all entry-level white-collar jobs will be gone in 5 years. Mo Gaudet, former Google exec, says the hell, in quotes, starts around 2027. Interesting, right? They're saying the shit show is really going to begin in 2 years. And nobody is safe, they say. No developers, not CEOs. They say not even podcasters. Okay, now I'm super cooked, charbroiled. And this is being said by the people building the tech, telling you it's about to erase the entire workforce. In Vancouver, that's right, the city that's been sold as Canada's tech future, the job market is being destroyed here. And on paper, it looks pretty decent until you really look into it. Tech headcount is up over the last few years, and average salaries have climbed. But on the ground, it's a bloodbath, as seen here. Since around 2022, tech job postings have crashed, especially in Vancouver, where listings are down about 43% compared to pre-pandemic levels. Entry-level and junior roles have basically vanished. Hiring timelines stretch from months to years, and fresh grads with degrees, internships, and solid references are now walking dogs, stocking shelves, or applying for retail and casino jobs just to survive. Recruiters say what used to be a worker's market has flipped completely. A single tech posting now gets hundreds of applicants, and a lot of people are leaving the industry altogether. The big players here are the ones swinging the axe the hardest. Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and others have cut tens of thousands of roles globally, and Vancouver feels every one of those hits. Startups and public sector tech jobs are getting hammered too, with stealth layoffs, in quotes, dodging official reporting thresholds. So they're not being reported here. We're not seeing the numbers. They just call them stealth layoffs. They're not trying to get people to panic, okay? And behind a lot of this is AI. Companies openly admit they're using automation to replace entire functions, especially lower level coding and routine tech work. Developers are saying outright that companies are replacing us left and right with AI. New grad hiring is down by half since 2019, and generalists are being tossed aside while a tiny elite of machine learning and cloud specialists are still getting hired with giant paychecks. And Vancouver is brutally expensive on top of all that. I mean, a place where even a six-figure tech salary isn't enough. High costs, fewer jobs, overqualified workers fighting for scraps now, and AI steadily destroying this entire system here, destroying all these career tech jobs, all of this combined into the same picture. A growing pool of highly educated, indebted, frustrated workers stuck in survival jobs, and that is exactly the kind of desperate population you can herd into temporary relief. Schemes like UBI pilots and programmable payouts the second the real economic crash hits. Okay, everything is perfectly primed for the digital concentration cap to really be accelerated here. And it's not just Vancouver. AI is gutting jobs everywhere. MIT found that AI can already replace about 12% of the US labor market. Amazon is gearing up to swap out around 600,000 warehouse jobs with robots. And companies like Walmart, Meta, UPS, Salesforce, Paramount, and YouTube have already cut nearly 1 million positions this year alone because automation is cheaper. McKinsey says 40% of American jobs could disappear by 2030. And that's like the best case scenario, they say. You know, the other Yampolsky dude says 99%. Goldman predicts millions displaced. The World Economic Forum estimates 92 million worldwide. Middle management is shrinking. Junior roles are evaporating, and white-collar workers, the people who thought they were safe, are next in line. Experts warn that within a few years, AI will have the capacity to automate almost every cognitive job there is. And humanoid robots are being built to take the physical ones right behind them. This is why governments are panicking and why UBI is suddenly on every policy table. If millions of people lose work at the same time, society collapses. UBI becomes the leash. And here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about Vancouver. This isn't even just Canada or the States. This is across the world. In 2025, you can check this article out right here. Governments are quietly testing different versions of universal basic income around the world to see which one is the best working leash. Let's put it that way. South Korea giving farmers yearly payouts. Wales handing former foster kids 1,600 euros a month. India rolling out unconditional cash to women. And dozens of US cities running targeted basic income pilots. I mean, different excuses, different demographics, different branding as well. But the blueprint is the same. Unconditional digital money aimed at creating dependency. This is all conditioning. Okay. Isn't it kind of crazy that first this starts with COVID and then they hand out stimulus checks in the US? In Canada, we have CERB checks. All around the world, they did the same thing. It was like a small little test run then. But now they're giving people UBI, test pilots, people, and whatever works best, you better believe they're going to flip the switch on you. They're creating dependency through free money. They call it poverty relief. But the real play is obvious if you've been paying attention, if you've been going over the WEF articles and what they've been saying for at least a decade now. You start with unconditional, just long enough for people to get comfortable, just long enough for the routine to feel normal. Because once you've trained a population to rely on government-issued digital money, like domesticated animals waiting for their feeding time, that's when the conditions begin. Then unconditional turns into conditional. Suddenly your monthly payout needs verification. Suddenly your digital wallet needs updates. Suddenly your eligibility requires your boosters to be current. Okay, you miss an injection, then you miss a payment. That's the trajectory we're all heading towards here. They're drip feeding the public first, then they'll tighten the leash later. All of it moves towards the same end game, okay? A world where survival itself is based on your obedience. Okay, if you're dumb enough to accept conditional digital coupons, where do you think we're going to head here? And where the money in your pocket isn't even yours. It's a permission slip that can be turned off if you don't follow the program. Now we got Andrew Yang on CNN saying something crazy here, okay? Let's check this out right here.
Capitalism does not work very well if people don't have money to spend.
So is this capitalism that we're talking about? It sounds rather socialist, doesn't it? That everybody's going to get a check and therefore they won't have to go to work because all these jobs are being taken by AI initially.
It's capitalism where income doesn't start at zero, Michael, and you have a consumer economy that is predicated on folks being able to participate. And if you shove millions of Americans to the curb via AI and automation, then they're not going to be able to go to their local business. They're not going to be able to meaningfully grow the economy. They're going to stay at home. They're going to end up going down internet rabbit holes and getting radicalized in many cases. So that's a loss. And so if we can get people connected in various ways, that's the direction we should go. And I'm not someone who thinks that this money is a silver bullet that's going to do the trick. I mean, you still have to convey structure, purpose, fulfillment, community, all of the rest of it that jobs traditionally have provided.
You got Andrew Yang on CNN casually admitting the real plan here. Pay attention, saying that once people stop working, they'll just sit inside and get radicalized. I mean, I'm assuming he means with like conspiracies and whatnot, which tells you everything. They know a jobless society becomes unpredictable unless you keep people sedated, entertained, and chemically softened. Let's put it that way. That's why Yuval Noah Harari, was sitting there bragging word for word. He says, what are we going to do with all these humans when we, usher in this new system? Well, we got to keep them entertained with drugs and video games. Like he's reading a script of Brave New World, which is literally, this plot of the movie. And someone in the comments here said it perfectly. This will be used to actually control us. Our labor is our leverage. If we lose our leverage, we lose our freedom. The post-work technocracy will be a far more cruel hell than anything we have experienced in the modern age. It will be based on authoritarian control, mass surveillance, fake decadence, and the end of thought, freedom, and liberty as we know it. That explains it perfectly right there. Once AI wipes out the jobs and your only lifeline is a digital allowance that can pause at any time, there's no leverage left. You're not a citizen. You're a dependent, a domesticated animal living off monthly digital feedings. And the people running this system don't need to negotiate with you anymore because you can't walk away. What are you going to do? You're going to go on a strike? You can't opt out. They just keep you doped up enough, distracted enough, and broke enough to comply. Of course, they're selling it like a solution to poverty, the poverty that they engineered. But all it is mass surveillance and digital punishment. Nonstop scheduled pharmaceutical injections, VR escapism, and a society where free thought becomes illegal. That is the direction we are headed towards. They're steering this in that direction, a world where comfort replaces freedom. People will give up their rights to feel cozy in their cage. We know this. It's almost like the natural human biology. Humans tend to want to be lazy. If you look it up, you can actually read the science behind it. Elon already said it. We need UBI, as seen right here. That good old picture of his bestie right there, Israeli Mossad agent, hosing him down on a yacht.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job, machine, robot is taking over.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen.
Elon Musk said it himself. Klaus Schwab said, prepare for an angrier world. And he said it will last until the remedy is found. And of course, the remedy being, well, a digital leash. CBDC linked to UBI.
We will see definitely a lot of anger already now, but probably increase by the end of the year.
The best supervillain ever.
Because
He said probably will increase by the end of the year. Want to know why the psyops are hitting levels we've never seen before? Why the government is suddenly dangling these UFO distractions all over the place like they're about to roll out the final card, Project Bluebeam. The cosmic, don't look over here, look over there. Well, because the truth is getting exposed. The crimes against humanity are now so blatant, they can't avoid them any longer. The FDA just admitted the COVID shots killed many American children. Headline says COVID shots killed more kids than they saved. Well, considering it was a straight up poison in a syringe, yeah, obviously. Now, in this historic admission, they call it, the numbers they're admitting to are cartoonishly low. They said 10 dead kids in the States, Really? Only 10? You mean to tell me the same agencies that buried myocarditis for a year, denied every safety signal, and smeared anyone who raised alarms are now suddenly giving you the true casualty count? Those numbers aren't just low, they're insulting. They're a lowball number inside of another lowball, aka a bare minimum we can't deny anymore. Estimate from a system designed to undercount everything that makes them look bad. There's underreports like crazy, by orders of magnitude. Doctors don't even file most of the time. Families don't know. Hospitals bury the connection to, and the FDA staff themselves, by Prasad's own words, coded cases in the direction of protecting the vaccine, okay? So they use certain language just to protect the vaccine, not the child. So if they are forced to admit even this little tiny crack here, just imagine how catastrophic the real numbers must be. Because do you really think these people, the same ones who bribe the public with donuts, fries, and lottery tickets are suddenly going to stand up and say, hey, by the way, we killed thousands of kids, sorry about that? No. They will admit the smallest sliver only when the evidence is so overwhelming, even their own insiders can't keep the lid on it anymore. Okay, that's exactly what's happening now. The FDA's memo details how myocarditis warnings were suppressed, how kids were coerced into shots they didn't need, how death reports from 2021 through 2024 were ignored for years, how the FDA and CDC pushed mandates built on fraudulent data, how no randomized trials ever proved benefits for children, and how every argument, including the virus causes myocarditis BS, remember that one? COVID causes more myocarditis than the vaccine. It was all based on total nonsense junk, and now they're admitting it. And even political science, not real science. The FDA report lays out how billions in vaccine profits shape the entire system, how the FDA never demanded proper evidence, how senior staff resigned rather than approve boosters for all ages, and how the whole regulatory culture was rigged to approve, defend, and protect the product no matter what damage emerged. And now, in 2025, after the political pressure has died down and the narrative has slipped, the new director is finally forced to admit the unthinkable. The U.S. vaccine program may have harmed more children than it saved. Insane admission right here, people. That's why the psyops are escalating, okay? That's why every week it's aliens, world war, cyber attacks, and nonstop emotional manipulation. Because once the public realizes the government knowingly pushed a pharmaceutical product that killed kids and they hid it, the entire system will collapse overnight, okay? They need a bigger monster to keep your eyes off this truth right here. And they know exactly which card they still have left to play, okay? They got a bunch of cards in the deck. Go check the Illuminati card game. But get this. What if I told you they knew there was no pandemic? Yeah, because if that's true, if they already knew the threat to children was non-existent, then the whole idea of killed more children than it saved isn't just an understatement. It's an insult to reality. That phrase only makes sense if the people in charge were genuinely trying to help and just got the math wrong. But if they knew there was no pandemic to justify any of this, then the bioweapon injection wasn't a mistake or a miscalculation or a policy error, just incompetence. It was intentional. It was designed to harm. It was designed to kill. Here's more proof here in Moderna's own trial. Moderna's own Kid Cove trial, a young child died after getting the booster. Cardiorespiratory arrest, heart attack, and drop dead. Moderna didn't publish it, didn't even put it in any medical journal, and didn't list it on clinicaltrials.gov, even though they're supposed to. They kept it out of public view. The only place it shows up is in a European regulatory database hardly anyone checks. Moderna labeled the death as not related to the vaccine. Yeah, because, little kids just drop dead suddenly after getting a injection for no reason because of the weather. Total nonsense. And they did so without offering any explanation or data, just a blanket claim. The FDA didn't give straight answers either. When asked about it, they gave a vague statement that avoided confirming anything and didn't even say what they actually knew or when they knew it. Moderna completed the trial and finished the analysis months ago, but still hasn't posted the results publicly, and no one in the US system is forcing them to. According to the data from Europe, serious adverse events were much higher in vaccinated kids than in the placebo group. 99 cases versus 10. Moderna dismissed almost all of them as unrelated. Some toddlers had severe breathing issues right after the shot. None of the placebo kids did. Moderna still said none were connected. Parents have already rejected these shots for their kids. Uptake is below 3% even in places that aggressively promoted all these death shots. And now the fact that a child died during the trial and the public was never told is finally coming to light. That's the reality they're trying to keep buried. And the fact they tried so hard to bury it and then aggressively rushed these out to the public tells you all you need to know. They knew there was no pandemic, okay? Just in time for the debt bubble to burst. Same time they destroyed the middle class, and now they're rolling out digital IDs, CBDCs, UBI, and 15-minute cities to enslave people, to kill off the vast majority of people, to leave them sterile. I mean, not hard to see, people. And once again, it's always giving you a sliver of truth while sliding in lies. Because they're now actually confirming, saying that in the early stage of the pandemic, 86% of those PCR tests were nonsense, fraudulent. 86%, only about 14% off there, okay? 100% of them. They're giving you a little bit of truth every time. 86%, Okay, people, today on Karma is a Bitch, from mockery to heart-stoppery. That's what we're going to call this one. Let me introduce you to Exhibit A. Back in 2021, when governments were banning the unvaccinated from malls, restaurants, gyms, basically everywhere except the afterlife, this woman, Jessica E.E., weird last name, E.E., 2 E's, Easy E over here, was on Facebook giggling about how much she was loving the meltdown of the anti-vaxxers. Check this post out. I'm loving the meltdown of the anti-vaxxers. Too bad you can't go into restaurants. Boo-hoo. That was the mood back then, folks. Mock, shame, dehumanize, laugh at people for losing their jobs, losing freedoms, losing their ability to buy a burger indoors. Fast forward to today. Exhibit B. She's now on the front page of CNA giving a heartbreaking interview about suffering a stroke at age 32. Talking about confusion, fear, weakness on her left side, and wondering how it could happen and whether it could happen again. A former model and dermatologist suddenly fighting for her life and walking with a cane now, rebuilding her strength from scratch. Look at these two snapshots right here, 4 years apart. The first image, she's celebrating segregation, laughing at people who she thought were beneath her, cheering the system on. And fast forward a few years and, well, that system's collateral damage is sitting by a window looking like she aged 20 years and 20 months. Isn't that crazy? I call that the mRNA accelerated aging package. A lot of people got it. Look at Don Lemon. And the wild part is this. Not even the loudest cheerleaders understood the machine they were defending until it rolled over them. That's the cosmic comedy of COVID. First, they mocked us. Then they complied, like the perfect little NPCs for the New World Order, convinced the system really cared about them, And now, the system doesn't even remember their names. This is the system y'all fought and died for? Really? Well, Jessica Double E, come collect your Karma is a Bitch award because the universe's humor is undefeated. Loyalty means nothing to a death-driven system. It uses you, drains you, and tosses you aside the second you're no longer useful. Someone needs to tell Trump that. So the Rockefeller Foundation finally figured out how to reach young people. They bought the biggest influencer on earth, people, Mr. Beast. The guy whose entire brand, is literally called Beast. Across every thumbnail, every merge he has, the Beast. Like we're officially in the last pages of Revelations here. And you have to ask, why would the dynasty behind, big pharma, lab-grown meat, digital ID slavery, migrant flooding, pandemic propaganda, and the entire modern medical cartel suddenly decide their future runs through a YouTuber? Why would the same institution that spent a century building a big pharma death state, rewriting medical education and engineering, half the misery we call normal life, now plant its flag inside the most influential channel among children and teenagers. Because the exact demographic that stopped trusting politicians, stopped watching mainstream news networks, and stopped swallowing establishment narratives, they still trust influencers, okay? And the Rockefeller machine realized they can't lecture the next generation into obedience through the MSM, so they found someone who already has their attention and bought the front door, okay? Rajiv Shah, the Rockefeller president, went in front of the cameras bragging that philanthropy has failed to capture the hearts and minds of hundreds of millions of young people, which is hilarious. He used the word capture, not help, but capture, which is the vocabulary of psychological warfare straight out of a population control strategy. They're not even hiding it. Now they want to use Mr. Beast, which is the biggest YouTuber of all time, as their new delivery system. Wait till you hear the words Mr. Beast uses when talking about the partnership here. So half of his audience is kids and teenagers, people barely old enough to vote. So why would the Rockefeller Foundation want him? Well, that's the exact demographic the establishment can't reach anymore because they stopped trusting news networks, stopped listening to politicians, and stopped buying the approved narratives. So now the institutions are skipping the debate and installing themselves directly into the content kids watch all day. Remember the new polls coming out showing that most kids now believe more conspiracies than adults, which did give me hope, I must say. They have the least trust in mainstream news. Look at this title right here. Young people more prone to believe in conspiracies, research shows. And check the first couple of paragraphs. It's actually ridiculous. Hillary Clinton had Jeffrey Epstein killed. Barack Obama was not born in the United States. The pharmaceutical industry was responsible for the spread of COVID-19. These are all conspiracies with no basis in fact, says University of Ottawa professor Daniel Stockamer. But his research shows that theories like them are gaining traction among young people. In fact, people younger than 35 are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories than other age groups, according to a recent study by Stockamer and co-author John Nicholas Bordelot. They surveyed more than 380,000 people internationally and found this to be the case. The research was recently published in the journal Political Psychology. Conspiracy theories are now for everyone, Stockamer told CBC Radio's All in a Day, noting that between 20 and 25% of the population believes in one, but the young are slightly more likely to believe in them. Well, now we know why they ran this study, okay? And exactly why they're reaching out to some of the biggest influencers ever. And Mr. Beast didn't even pretend to resist it. He told the AP he wants to download their brains into our team's brains. Direct quote, people. Not philanthropy to me, okay? That sounds like he's trying to brainwash people, like a wireless Neuralink. Download their brains into our brains. He wants to straight up upload propaganda directly into these kids' brains, people. They're not even hiding it. That's Rockefeller influence getting uploaded straight into the biggest media empire in youth culture. They're merging his algorithm addiction with their century-old obsession with behavioral engineering. They call it science-based philanthropy. It's all the same thing, a measurable influence operation. It's like MK Ultra for kids. And Fortune tried to dress it up as some kind of inspiring bridge between the generations. Wow, this is such a groundbreaking revolution. But the only thing being bridged is Rockefeller messaging into adolescent minds. Okay? Kids are the bridge. Youth are the bridge. And the other side of the bridge is whatever global control program they roll out next. Think about what that means, people. That means all of this propaganda the Rockefeller wants to push is going to be directly uploaded into children's brains from inclusivity campaigns, okay? Normalizing endless migration, pushing digital IDs as safety, accepting the UBI program, the Mark of the Beast, China-style surveillance state. And of course, don't forget the never-ending medical rituals, because we all know Rockefeller is at the top of that pyramid. And going over this article here, it's a form of reverse psychology in a way. They want to help the children, it says, to end child hunger, end child labor, protect the vulnerable. They do this because if you push back against it, they paint you as anti-child, while they slide in centralized 3D printed foods and mandatory poison shots, and they call us anti-child. And now they get to do it with the smiling face of the world's most wholesome influencer. It's the perfect mask here. The symbolism is also crazy if you really think about it. The Rockefeller Foundation, the same dynasty that built the modern big pharma control grid as we know it, is now partnering with a guy whose entire brand is labeled the Beast becoming the gateway to shape the minds of the next generation, just as the world gets primed for biometric IDs, CBDCs, and a surveillance economy where if people don't accept it, they won't be able to buy or sell. I mean, the symbolism is sitting right there, people. Is it a surprise that in the video announcing the demonic alliance, Mr. 666 Beast himself throws up the devil horns? That's right, people. So the oldest power structure in America locking arms with the biggest youth influencer in the world to make sure the next generation walks straight into whatever digital slavery state comes next. Okay? And they'll do it smiling because Mr. Beast told them it's for a good cause. In 2010, as many of you know, the Rockefeller Foundation published a document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. And buried inside of it was the lockstep scenario, a blueprint showing how a future pandemic could be used to justify restricted movement, biometric IDs, digital checkpoints, mass surveillance, and fully controlled media. It wasn't framed as fiction either. It read like an instruction manual, a manual on how to push an entire population into top-down authority by selling them on the idea that obedience equals safety. A decade later, the world moved almost exactly the way they wrote it. And now the very same institution that sketched out the playbook is teaming up with Mr. Beast, the biggest youth influencer alive, celebrating that they finally found a way to capture hearts and minds they couldn't reach before. Lockstep showed how to manage people during a crisis. This partnership shows how to shape the next generation so they're already mentally softened for whatever crisis gets rolled out next, whether it's climate, cyber attacks, migration chaos, or even another pandemic, or something they haven't even introduced yet, maybe the alien psyop. This isn't a prediction either. They're prepping their audience, okay? They are molding the minds of the next generation with this Beast influencer. And picking a guy literally known as Beast, it sounds like they did it for the symbolism as well. They're letting the symbolism do half the work for them. The lockstep document laid it out with almost creepy accuracy. During a global outbreak, governments would tighten control and people would hand over their freedoms, not because they were forced, but because fear and exhaustion make people cooperate with anything that promises normal life in return. It's actually insane. They even described society learning to prefer strict oversight. Countries that followed orders quickly were said to recover faster, which is just a cute way of saying compliant populations get rewarded. Then they went deeper. They imagined digital checkpoints, movement controlled by health status, scanners, pass systems, biometric verification, and facial recognition grids tracking your location under the banner of public safety. And the tone of the document is the most disturbing part. There's no moral debate, no hesitation. They talk about mass surveillance as if it's just natural evolution of, adult life, something that humans will have to accept. They also described an information environment run through trusted partners, meaning the government, global NGOs, and tech companies all syncing their messaging so the public only sees what's approved. They even describe manipulating people before a crisis hits, shaping emotional responses in advance so panic moves in a direction they can manage. And that's the part people miss here. When you say you want trusted partners controlling the information flow, you're not just talking about newsrooms, okay? You're talking about personalities, voices, familiar faces, influencers. The document basically lays out that they're going to use influencers too to push their agenda. So we need to really pay attention to what all of this means. Obedience equals recovery. Then the most effective way to engineer obedience is to steer the messengers the public already trusts. That's how you manage behavior without looking like you're managing anything. You don't censor the whole world, you amplify the voices that already have the audience's attention and make them the default channel for the Rockefeller-approved worldview. So when the same institution that authored all of this suddenly teams up with a guy named Mr. Beast, what do you call that? Well, you call that demonic recruitment. The Rockefeller machine, after more than a century of designing global control systems, now plugging itself directly into the biggest youth platform in existence. Not to debate ideas, but to quietly insert their worldview into content kids already trust. A young, friendly, hyper-viral face delivering messages that wouldn't land if they came from the MSM or any billionaire foundation. And they're doing it now because they lost the adults. Too many people saw through it. Too many podcasts exposed it. Too many older viewers started asking questions, okay? So they're starting new with kids, clean minds, no memory of who engineered the last crisis. And when the beast tells them what global cooperation looks like or which emergency deserves obedience, they'll take it at face value. They'll trust him. They'll trust the beast because no one ever showed them who's writing the script or why the same handful of names show up every time a new global emergency pops up. Just to get people updated again and refreshed on how this one man took over the entire healthcare system. And now he's working with the beast to brainwash the minds of the children. Yeah, we're headed in a great direction here.
Around the same time that John D. Rockefeller seized U.S. media, he also hijacked U.S. medicine. When it was discovered that drugs could be produced from petroleum, America's top oil mogul ordered his army of propagandists to invert reality accordingly. Medicines used for thousands of years were suddenly classified as alternative, while the new, petroleum-based, highly addictive, and patentable drugs were declared the gold standard. Rockefeller leveraged his political influence by pressing Congress to declare natural healing modalities unscientific quackery. Rockefeller then took control of the American Medical Association and began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that only his approved curriculum be taught. Any mention of the healing powers of herbs, plants, and diet was erased from most medical textbooks. Doctors and professors who objected to Rockefeller's plan were crucified by the media, removed from the AMA, and stripped of their license to teach and practice medicine. Those who dared to speak out were arrested and jailed. When evidence began to emerge that petroleum-based medicines were causing cancer, Mr. Rockefeller founded the American Cancer Society, through which he suppressed that information. John D. Rockefeller is duly credited as the founder of the pharmaceutical industry, and the reason that medical error is currently the third leading cause of death in America.
Crazy.
This is not an indictment against doctors. More than anyone, they are under the stranglehold of the single largest lobbying power in Washington. Every year, the pharmaceutical industry spends at least twice the amount as big oil to influence laws, policies, and public perception. Thanks to Mr. Rockefeller, the architect of American monopolies, no industry has more power over our lives than Big Pharma.
Now they're teaming up with the biggest influencer on earth to brainwash kids. MK Ultra for kids. How do you think this is going to play out? Everyone knows the Rockefeller name because the school system treated them like national heroes, you know, the backbone of modern civilization. I mean, you know, Jay-Z decides to call his record label Rockefeller too. Yeah, not surprising. This is Jay-Z's main hand sign to promote his record label right here. Yeah, I know, right? Jay-Z was basically the Mr. Beast of the black community, you know, the face they used to steer a whole generation. Everybody knows who bought him out years ago, okay? But almost nobody asks where that dynasty actually came from. Whose hands built the first pile of cash that later got polished into philanthropy and public health leadership? The truth is, the entire Rockefeller empire wasn't born from some holy, hardworking oil baron patriarch. It started with a con man named William Rockefeller Sr., the man locals literally called Devil Bill. That's right, people, the original Billy the Baphomet, the OG Billy. This wasn't an exaggeration or some cute nickname from a rough era. Devil Bill was a full-blown traveling scam artist, a fake doctor, fake herbalist, fake deaf mute when he needed sympathy, fake everything. He sold bogus miracle cures out of wagons, faked identities under names like Dr. William Livingston, skipped out on rape charges, vanished on debts, ran bigamy schemes, traded horses and land like a 19th century Ponzi operator, and bragged openly that he cheated his boys every chance he got, end quote, because he wanted them sharp. That is the genetic code of the Rockefeller fortune: deception, manipulation, and squeezing desperate people for profit. And the poetry here is just brutal. The dynasty that later built Big Pharma, funded eugenics boards, influenced global health policy, and now brands itself as the conscience of the world was literally founded by a man who made his living selling snake oil. That's the real origin story behind the organization now teaming up with the biggest influencer on earth to shape the next generation. Devil Bill built his fortune by tricking vulnerable people with fake medicine. His descendants perfected the model on a global scale with science, philanthropy, and whatever public good label they wrap around the next control system. So in the same bloodline that started with a fugitive con artist now links arms with the beast to steer the minds of the children, understand what is really going on here, okay? It's a modern version of the same old operation. They just upgraded the snake oil bottle and upgraded the salesman. And the crowd is now watching through a computer screen. The manipulation never changed. Only the production value did. The entire American medical empire didn't grow out of scientific brilliance or humanitarian instincts. It came from a business decision to weaponize sickness. Before the white coats, before the hospital wings named after billionaires, there was John D. Rockefeller staring at mountains of petrochemical waste and realizing he could turn toxic leftovers into medicine if he could just erase the competition. And the competition back then wasn't Pfizer or Moderna. It was every local healer, herbalist, midwife, naturopath, and community doctor using treatments that didn't rely on lab sludge and didn't generate profit. Rockefeller didn't use science to push them out of business. He outpoliticked them. He scammed them, just like his father. He used his foundations as the financial Trojan horse to take over the medical schools, rewriting the entire curriculum into a drug-first doctrine that turned generations of doctors into highly educated sales reps for whatever chemical formula the industry wanted to push next. And the beautiful irony the history books ignore is that this whole empire, the modern healthcare system, the pharmaceutical priesthood, the diagnostic alphabet soup, all of it traces back to a family whose patriarch was literally a traveling peddler of fake cures. Okay, the same bloodline that once sold opium-laced snake oil out of wagons now runs a global system where the bottle got a little fancier, the marketing got cleaner, and the side effects list got way longer. Okay, but the business model never changed. I mean, they keep the population just sick enough to stay profitable and call anything natural or preventative unscientific, so no one threatens the entire program. That wasn't a revolution in medicine. It was a hostile takeover of human health, executed by people who learned early on that the easiest customer is the one who trusts the salesman. A century later, the heirs of the empire still operate under the same logic. Managing illness is more lucrative than eliminating it. And a population that depends on pharmaceuticals is a population you never lose control of. The only difference now is the scale. I mean, Devil Bill ran his racket town to town. His descendants run theirs continent to continent. And once they locked down the entire medical system, they didn't stop. They branched that scam into every corner of public health imaginable. I mean, think about this. For damn near a century, these demons were out here telling us that the sun was trying to murder us. And the only way to stay safe was to coat your skin in their factory-grade chemical soup. Sunscreen's been pushed since the 30s and 40s, right out of the same Rockefeller medical cult that turned every natural thing into a threat so they could sell you the fix. And the craziest part is, well, that protection that they sold you on, to save you from the evil sun that causes cancer, well, that protection was loaded with benzene and all kinds of triple C's, cancer-causing carcinogens, literal carcinogens in the one product that's supposed to prevent skin cancer. And for decades, they blamed the sun, knowingly. Not their chemicals, not their formulas, the sun. Then in 2021, an online pharmacy finally tested the stuff. Not the FDA, not the regulators, some random pharmacy. And boom, dozens of sunscreens were filled with poison. Johnson & Johnson started panicking. CVS was pulling their products left and right. But look at the pattern. They drop the poison, calls anyone who questions it a conspiracy nut for decades. They then flood the airwaves with ads mocking people who read the ingredients. And then the second regular folks start waking up, they go, oh yeah, sorry, our bad. Let's just pull the product. It was totally an accident. I mean, the sun didn't suddenly turn evil. People didn't just develop a new allergy to daylight. What changed was the toxic garbage they've been rubbing into everybody's skin. And now that they got caught, they just moved on to the next formula like nothing ever happened. The same scam has been running over and over again. Didn't just start with COVID. Every time you try to call out this Rockefeller system of medicine or call out sunscreen for being garbage, you were canceled, taken down, deplatformed, all of it. Humiliated, smeared in newspapers back in the day. They did the same exact thing. And then when we finally prove it to be poison, they say, oops, sorry, our bad, then they pull it. Do you not see the same exact pattern happening all the time? Do you really think they thought the COVID vaccines would save some people? Or are they running the same scam that Devil Bill ran over 100 years ago? They're not even hiding this on fringe leaks or anonymous documents anymore. No, it's sitting right on the official website of the US government. The Brain Initiative, their crown jewel, literally describes itself as a federal partnership designed to accelerate the development of innovative neurotechnologies that lets scientists map and monitor how individual brain cells and neural circuits behave in real time. In other words, a government-funded program to decode the human mind. And the working groups behind it, a who's who of the surveillance deep state. Okay, DARPA, the FDA, IARPA, the National Science Foundation, and neuroethics advisors brought in to make sure they stay within the lines while they erase the lines. They openly describe creating a dynamic picture of the brain, meaning real-time neural surveillance. They openly describe a neural engineering system design, a DARPA implant the size of 2 nickels that can transmit unprecedented amounts of data between the human brain and the digital world. Think about that. The CIA's dream from MKUltra, a two-way brain interface, now funded, regulated, and celebrated on a government website. It's like a translator that converts your neural activity into the ones and zeros that computers understand. And once computers understand your thoughts, guess what comes next? Computers that can write new ones back. That's right. That's the holy grail of population control. Truly the end game, like a wireless Neuralink. And DARPA's presenting it like some cool Silicon Valley new tech gadget or something. And if that's what they brag about publicly, imagine what's still locked behind classified walls. Because the public list of DARPA projects already reads like a sci-fi horror flick. Dystopian script completely. I mean, CRISPR gene editing, gene drives, engineered biological traits, insect-based delivery systems for genetic payloads, Internet of Body surveillance networks, augmented soldiers, DNA-level enhancements, and neural implants designed to merge you with the machine. These aren't theories, people. These are government-funded programs openly listed under their research portfolio. DARPA literally created ARPANET, okay? The precursor to the internet. Which means they're not just studying digital control, they built the digital world everyone lives in. They funded Tor, the so-called anonymous internet. That's right, DARPA was behind it. And somehow we're supposed to believe the same agencies that invented it have no backdoor access? Yeah, right. The Brain Initiative is MKUltra with a budget. Okay, that's what this Brain Initiative is. And they're rolling it out at the exact same time as the global push for smart cities, digital IDs, biometric checkpoints, and Palantir predictive policing systems. They're not just mapping the brain, they're building the operating system for humanity. The only question left is whether people realize that the future they're advertising as healthcare innovation is the same future intelligence agencies were dreaming about in basement labs in the 1960s. And how do we know they're really doing this in real time right now? Because about a year ago, CBS, that's right, the Controlled by Satan network, casually admitted the thing people were called crazy for saying, that mind-reading technology is no longer sci-fi. Okay, this is public knowledge now. Colorado actually passed the first brain privacy law in America because commercial headsets can now read your thoughts, decode your intentions, and even stimulate your brain with electrical pulses to alter your mood or behavior. You ever wonder why you get those random ads? Something you never said out loud, only thought of? Well, here you go. They showed devices you can buy for $200 that literally let you control computers with your mind. Unbelievable, people. Neuroscientists bragged on camera that AI has already identified the brain wave patterns for specific words and is converting thoughts into text with 40% accuracy. This was a few years ago, so they said they're expecting 90% to 100% within a few years. Not just reading your mind, but altering it. They demonstrated headbands that modulate your brain activity, wearable gadgets that zap you with microcurrents while you sleep, and implants developed by Elon Musk, Apple, Meta, and OpenAI that decode neural signals and write them back into your cortex. And while medical labs are regulated, the big tech companies harvesting this brain data are not. 2/3 of them are already selling or sharing neural data with third parties. Insurance companies can use it. Advertisers can manipulate it. Law enforcement can interrogate with it. Governments can weaponize it. This is why Colorado scrambled to pass a neuro rights law. This is insane. We need laws in place to protect our brain privacy, okay? Can my thoughts be my own and private? Because when the technology to read and edit human thought becomes mainstream, the only privacy you have left is inside your skull. And even that is up for grabs now. Well, let's see what the Rockefeller system of medicine is up to this week. What satanic anti-life project are they cooking up now? Because these people don't heal anything. They manufacture fear, weaponize biology, and run psychological operations disguised as science, okay? And the latest crazy ish here is a US government-funded lab importing and breeding colonies of foreign ticks from Africa, the ones tied to the Congo hemorrhagic fever with a 30% kill rate, and they're raising them right in Kansas, Texas. Texas Tech and UC Davis, like prepping props for the next pandemic movie trailer. And of course, the entire thing is being sold as research. Don't worry, we're just testing these out for research. You're not going to believe what they're trying to create with all of these ticks, even though every expert with a brain is saying it's reckless insanity since, ticks always escape, ticks bite, ticks spread. That's literally what ticks do. But here's the craziest part, and I need to make this crystal clear. I don't believe any Wuhan lab leak produced a brand new world-killing super virus. That whole storyline was a controlled op, psychological trap to keep people believing in invisible pathogens instead of looking at the real weapons, mass PCR fraud, rebranded symptoms, rebranding the flu, fear-based compliance drills, and pharmaceutical governance. And the only reason the Wuhan lab leak narrative was pushed so aggressively was to keep humanity trapped in germ theory while governments and corporations built the infrastructure for forced medical obedience. So when I talk about these US labs playing with exotic ticks, I'm not warning about a real virus outbreak. I'm warning about the story they plan to tell when the next accident happens, okay? Because the real agenda here is mRNA in cattle, mRNA in livestock, mRNA in the food supply, just changing the genetics of everything we eat, targeting our food supply. And now the USDA has not one, not two, but 10 active contracts tied to mRNA vaccines for this exact virus, while the same EcoHealth Alliance that ran the Wuhan PSYOP is knee-deep in this tick program. Not because they're a legitimate threat, but because they need a scientific-sounding excuse when they start mandating injections for farms. So yeah, they're going to say, oops, one of these ticks that cause hemorrhagic fever just escaped the lab and infected all of the cattle and livestock. But don't worry, we got mRNA vaccines for them too. And they're going to say, oh, who could have predicted this? It's like you're watching the foundation of another PSYOP right here. It's total insanity. And they're saying they need these ticks, okay? They're studying these ticks to create new vaccines. Yeah, that makes sense. They always got the solution to, just waiting on the shelf. The Rockefeller medicine system always plays this game. They create the premise, then control the narrative, then they use Mr. Beast to sell you on a tick-based vaccine. Now let's check in on the Rockefeller system of medicine again. What satanic anti-life hobby are they working on this week? This might be a repeated segment here. Because after decades of turning half the population into chemically sedated zombies, you would think they'd take a day off, but nope. These demons never sleep. Do you ever wonder what the real end game is for destroying everyone's bodies? Why the nonstop big pharma slop, the injections, the food poisons, and the plastics, the hormone wreckage, what's the end game of this? Why are they destroying people's bodies like this? Well, they want you broken. They want your body so weak that even climbing a flight of steps can kill you, okay? Because once the population is physically cooked, that's when you're easiest to herd straight into their transhumanist program, okay? Here's classic Rockefeller logic right here. Step 1, ruin your body. Step 2, replace your body. That's right. Don't worry. Your body's breaking down, turbo cancers, your heart, myocarditis. Don't worry about that. They got a new body for you. And just in time. Check out the demonic solutions to demonic problems right here, people. Remember, I did cover this a while back, but now they're actually rolling through with it. I thought this was just like a theory or something, or some kind of prediction for the future. I didn't think this would actually be taking place soon. Brain Bridge, the world's first AI-driven head transplant system, folks. Oh my God. Does it get crazier than this? This is probably peak climax insanity. It can't get crazier than this. I know, a knock on wood. I hope it doesn't get crazier than this, but you never know. So the same people that are poisoning people with sunscreen and breeding mutant African ticks in Kansas are now planning to swap your head onto a new body like it's the movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. There he is. Isn't that funny? From Snake Eyes to Face Off. Nicolas Cage was in all the predictive programming classics, huh? Watching this video right here is absolutely sickening too. It's like a Tesla factory had an affair with a morgue. Robot arms everywhere, AI guided stitching. Like straight up Frankenstein tech. And of course, they're selling it as a cure to the problems they cause, COVID vax causes turbo cancers. Well, no worry. Here's a hope for cancer patients. Hope for the paralyzed. Let's just cut your head off using a robot, then stitch it onto somebody else's body, okay? Looks like your body can't survive booster number 13. But great news for you, we can bolt your head onto a brand new one. Transhumanist nightmare. They're talking about all of this like it's normal. Just make sure you schedule your head swapping surgery on Tuesday. Man-made horrors beyond our comprehension. Last thing we need to see is Klaus Schwab's head mounted onto Brock Lesnar's body, doing bench presses while telling you to eat the bugs. So Europe just took another giant step into the digital cage, and once again they call it protecting the children. Oh God, I'm so sick of hearing that at this point. What about the children? Because that's the magic phrase they always ram down your throat to justify the next surveillance upgrade. The European Parliament just voted 483 to 92 to move ahead with mandatory digital IDs for literally every major platform. Social media, video sites, AI chatbots, the whole digital universe packaged as age verification. But we all know the script, okay? First it's for the kids, don't worry, this is just to protect the kids. Then it's for everyone. Under their plan, every user has to re-identify themselves every 90 days just to stay online. Teens need parental permission on a loop, and kids under 13 are basically deleted from the internet altogether. And the whole system is run by unelected bureaucrats at the European Commission. The same people building the EU digital identity wallet and the mandatory age verification app, two pieces of the same centralized architecture that permanently wipes out online anonymity. Every login becomes a checkpoint. Every post becomes traceable. Every opinion gets tied to a government-verified identity. And if platforms don't obey, they get banned from the EU. Executives get held personally liable, and non-compliant design becomes a criminal offense. They pretend this is all about protecting minors from big tech, but the real agenda is the world's first fully identity-controlled internet, where privacy becomes a privilege, dissent becomes a risk, and your access to digital life depends on whether you line up properly at the biometric turnstile. They pretend this is about protecting minors from big tech, but the real agenda is the construction of a digital checkpoint state where identity becomes the price of participation. And maybe this is why they're so confident rolling it out. Because once your entire digital life is tied to a government-controlled ID, you won't be nudged, you will be forced. Forced to comply. Forced to behave, forced to vaccinate your kids or be locked out of society. Don't forget, Ursula von der Leyen was on stage talking about teaming up with Gavi, Bill Gates' organization, and announcing they want to vaccinate over 500 million children by 2030, and bragged about pledging $290 million to Gavi like she was just announcing some new iPhone launch. Like this is some great news here. But even that being said, we got to give the UK some credit here. A place called Cornwall. Okay, there is some good news. This became the first region in the entire country to officially tell the government to F off. They said, we're not doing mandatory digital IDs, okay? A conservative councillor brought the motion in and the Greens backed it. And the Liberal Democrat Council leader basically admitted point blank that he can't think of a single real benefit for forcing people into a digital tracking system. The whole chamber even broke into applause. Great news, right? They joked about marching 20,000 Cornish men to London like it's 1688 all over again. But the message was dead serious. Personal liberty over digital control. Cornwall drew a line and they drew it loudly, okay? Everybody give it up for Cornwall in the UK. Collectively telling the DIC, aka PICs, to F off. We need more people just like that. But let's take it back to shaping behavior here. If they can shape behavior, what happens if they can shape all of society? I mean, society is collapsing and the blueprint for the collapse was already mapped out in a mouse utopia in an experiment called Universe 25. Have you guys heard about this? Where John Calhoun ran 25 versions of the same experiment and found the exact same psychological death spiral every time, okay? It's a little doom and gloomy, okay? I know this is going to sound a little bit depressing, but I need to cover it because even under conditions that were engineered to be perfect, the enclosure itself was a sanitized, climate-controlled playground with 4 tiers, ramps, and 16 total nesting apartments designed to comfortably hold up to 3,800 mice. Yet the population never exceeded about 2,200 because the collapse wasn't physical overcrowding. It was social overcrowding. The same thing happening now in modern cities where millions of people live stacked on top of each other but feel more isolated than ever. The mice colony passed through predictable phases. The strive phase, where the founders explored their new world, and then the exploit phase, where the population doubled every 55 days. Then the equilibrium phase, where stress fractured the social order. And finally, the death phase, where behavior collapsed even though food, water, and space were still abundant. Dominant males monopolized the best nesting spaces, while weaker males got pushed into chaotic corridors where they spiraled into anxious, withdrawn non-functionality. These were the original wretches. No different from today's army of young men sinking into porn addiction, gaming escapism, antidepressants, and learned helplessness because they have no identity, no role, and no path forward. Females, deprived of stable partners and overwhelmed by constant unwanted interactions, became aggressive, territorial, and unstable, abandoning or even attacking their young. The same pattern we see now with mothers overloaded by economic pressure, social fragmentation, burnout, and a culture that treats parenthood like a defective lifestyle choice instead of the foundation of civilization. Juvenile mortality in the experiment hit 96% in some areas because once the social fabric breaks, nothing can be learned, nothing can be passed on, and no young can survive that chaos. Then came the infamous beautiful ones in quotes, the males who opted out of society entirely. No mating, no defending, no territorial behavior, no parenting, just an endless cycle of eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves into flawless but useless specimens, which perfectly mirrors today's self-obsessed, egocentric, conflict-avoidant, low testosterone men who are more attached to gym selfies, fake Instagram lives, and comfortable routines than anything resembling purpose or legacy. As the behavioral skin deepened, mice stopped performing complex social tasks altogether. They forgot how to court, how to build nests, how to protect, how to nurture, just like modern people who can no longer form stable relationships, maintain families, tolerate discomfort, or even think beyond dopamine-driven impulses. Eventually, the colony reached what Calhoun called the first death, a psychological extinction where the mice were biologically alive but spiritually and socially dead. And no amount of improved conditions rescued them. Even when researchers moved the healthiest survivors into a brand new utopia, they were incapable of recovering normal behavior. That was the second death, total extinction caused not by hunger or disease, but by a collapse of meaning. And when you watch what's happening today, collapsing birth rates, collapsing marriage, collapsing attention spans, collapsing masculinity, collapsing femininity, all these chicks addicted to OnlyFans, males addicted to porn, collapsing community, collapsing overall purpose, you start to realize something even darker is happening here. Ever since humans were domesticated and life engineered to be soft, convenient, and comfortable, the collapse was practically guaranteed. It feels less like an accident, though, and more like a century-long design by people who understood that a society with no hardship would eventually devour itself from within. That's why they're accelerating the breakdown now. It's almost like they domesticated people on purpose years back, knowing that it would lead to a collapse eventually. That's why they built a separate alternative system in place. And that's why they're all talking about golden age, new world order, build back better. They predicted the collapse, not just financially, but spiritually as well. And speaking of collapsing civilizations, everyone give it up for Canada. Number 1 on the list, folks. Doesn't get worse than this over here. The country that can't give you a family doctor for 6 years. And if you want to see a doctor for something serious, well, too bad, you're going to have to wait 10 years or something. Healthcare system super slow, but guess what they're lightning fast at? Killing you. That's right, the MAID program is lightning quick. Yeah, it's the compassionate choice, they call it. They swore it would only be for the terminally ill. Well, that's officially turned into a government-run off-ramp for anyone who's sick, poor, disabled, mentally struggling, financially struggling, or just slightly irritated by life itself. The universal healthcare system is clearly collapsing, almost non-existent, but do you know what is existent? The universal suicide pod. That's right. You're going to see that on every corner now. Doctors are coming forward saying they're being pushed to offer euthanasia first, even when the patient's condition is totally treatable. Chronic pain? Have you tried death? You can't get disability support? Well, we can't approve you for MAID by Friday. One doctor said a brain cancer patient was offered exactly 2 options, sedation or euthanasia. Yeah, no rehab, no psychology, no support at all. Canada's healthcare system has basically become a fast food menu where everything is sold out except the number 7 meal, permanent sleep. And now the geniuses running this experiment want to expand MAID to kids. Check this title out right here, people. Unbelievable. Groups are pushing for euthanasia for minors as young as 12 with parental consent, and 16 or 17-year-olds possibly being euthanized without their parents even knowing. Okay, because now they're labeling them as mature enough, end quote. Canada has reached a stage of moral decay where a teenager is not allowed to drink beer, can't vote, can't rent a car, but the government thinks you're mature enough to kill yourself. That's right, absolutely incredible. Give it up for Canada, folks. The one and only commie hellhole. The numbers are horrifying too. Over 15,000 Canadians were euthanized in 2023, making it the 6th leading cause of death in the country. Meanwhile, real medical care has wait times longer than a GTA 5 loading screen on a PS3. You can't get physiotherapy, mental health care, or pain management. But MAID? Well, that's approved in days. It's easier to get euthanized in Canada than it is to get a dentist appointment. They call that compassion. The truth is, all these people racking up medical debt is too much on the system, especially after the death shots were rolled out. So this was Trudeau and now Mark Carney's best way of cost cutting, okay? The satanic Canadian state just shrugging and saying, look, do you want help or do you want the cheap option? Canada has created a system where vulnerable people, the disabled, the poor, the lonely, the mentally ill, are being funneled toward death because care is just too damn expensive and compassion is too convenient. Once you start normalizing the idea that some lives aren't worth saving, the slope isn't slippery, it's now a cliff. Canada has officially gone psychotic, okay? It's lost its moral foundation. Gone. We didn't get an apology for the crimes against humanity, the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the poisonous vaccines that wrecked people's bodies. Nothing. They bulldozed over the whole mess like nothing ever happened. And now after wrecking people's bodies, they're hanging up rainbow-colored signs everywhere that basically say, kill yourselves. Such a liberal utopia, folks. Elbows up. And that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. If you like what I do here, if you want to support this channel, it is greatly appreciated. You hit those links in the description. 4 ways to support. Everything you see here is done by myself. So if you appreciate the effort that goes into this, it is greatly appreciated. You hit those links in the description. Crypto wallets in the description. P.O. box in the description. Purchase the Eyes Wide Open coffee, great organic coffee from Gustavus, Alaska. You will not only be helping fund this show, but you will be helping a small business over there in Gustavus, Alaska. So please consider hitting those links in the description, folks. Become a monthly subscriber on Patreon or Subscribestar. You will be the most valuable player here, okay? The MVP, because without your support, this show does not carry on. Like I said, no big name sponsors here, people. It's fully up to the people if they want to see this keep going. Click those links in the description, folks, for ways to support. Until next week, folks, until next time, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel, signing off.